Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Story Behind the Stories for the July 28th edition of the Neepawa Banner Press. I'm your host this week, Casper, Wehrhahn, and I'm joined today by Ken Waddell. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's good to be here. Owen's not feeling quite up to par, so the old guy steps in.
Yeah, Owen had a little bit of a rough week this week, just wasn't feeling quite up to snuff there, and so took a bit of a half day on the Tuesday and was right out on Wednesday. So yeah, I think that was Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we got everything together, and I got to tell you, this is a full paper. Truth be told, I was feeling a little nervous there, starting to put pages together as I kept going along with some assistance from Diane here. That we were gonna run out of room for things.
Yeah.
It was really tight.
That's a good problem to have in the newspaper business. Lots of stories and lots of ads, so makes for a happy publisher.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. And happy employees as well. We do need to get paid, so. But let's get to it, though. We're going to start, as always, a good place to start on the front page. And there was a lot going on in the Neepawa area. We had the raft event, that's Riverbend Arts Forward Farmery Tours event. So there's a bunch of different things happening here. And on the front page, we have some of that Arts Forward stuff going on, and a little bit along the main street here too, because there was a bunch of painting going on for some different benches. Some of that at Arts Forward and the others sort of on location around the town here. And well, I'm sure you've seen them already by now. There's a bunch of completed benches already that you can take a look at and of course sit on. That's what they're there for. And there's a bunch of stuff indoors at Arts Forward, some needle felting, etc. that you could take a look at. The artists were there on location working away, and some live music there as well outdoors, with some more painting going on outside. And one thing I actually brought my parents down there for too was they were sampling burgers. Some new burgers from the co-op that they're going to work on carrying here very soon.
They got a nickname, those burgers, apparently, eh?
Yeah.
Roe Burgers.
Yeah, Roe Burgers, yeah.
Is that after Darren Roe?
I believe so, yeah. Darren Roe's brother, I believe, is who made the recipes for them.
Oh, okay.
And they're going to incorporate those into the co-op. And yeah, there was a lot of different flavors. Very good. Yeah. I think I tried just about all of them, and yeah, I wanna get some.
That sounds good. Sounds good. Just one comment on the front page there. One of the pieces of artwork is our very own from NACTV, Rain Pryor's work, and I think her work has been on display. I don't know if it's going to be taken out at the end of this month or not, so maybe by the 31st of July might be the last day, but I'm not sure. Beautiful artwork, and she has quite a display up at the Arts Forward, and a bit of her work is featured on the front page here.
Yeah, that is a good point as well. Rain does have a little bit of an exhibit on display at Arts Forward for this month. So if you're able to go take a look at that, I definitely suggest it. It's very great work. Congratulations, Rain, on the exhibition. Moving into page 12 here, carrying on the activities from the front page, there was, of course, the Riverbend Makers Market, and as well Lily Days was going on too. So we have a bunch of photos from the Makers Market. I think it did well. We're going to have to get a bit more follow-up on that to see exactly how it went, but nice weather for it, of course, so that was great.
Yeah, it was good. We were there for Friday night, and it looked good. Some excellent quality merchandise for sale, and we made a couple of purchases there, and would highly recommend any of the exhibitors there for your future shopping needs. Good steady crowd there, and nearly as many, I think as many as last year, they said, for exhibitors, but not quite as many as the first year, because it was pretty big the first year, because it was one of the first events to be able to be held publicly after the COVID shutdown kind of started easing off. But they were very happy with it, and we went out on Sunday to the Lily Days. Just, I mean, it's unbelievable, the color and the range of flowers that are grown there. It's still Nigel and his crew there do quite a job there, and it was certainly well worth the trip there as well.
Yeah, it's always very beautiful going out to the Lily Nook there. There's just so many different types of lilies that you probably don't even think about or knew existed, but they have such a wide range there, and you can see them like they have, of course, potted lilies on sale there, but they also have the gardens on location, as well as their growing fields not too far away too that you can take a look at. It's pretty amazing.
It is amazing.
Something else here on this page didn't happen over the weekend, I don't believe, but Ken, you can shed some light on this one. There was a bit of some tours going on, wasn't there?
Yeah, the right on the front page of the paper is the thank you ad from Camo Cattle Company and their associates for attending the tour. Chris was able to be there for most of the day and took some video and some pictures. I was able to be there later in the day. With the one being sick, I figured I better not abandon the crew here, so I didn't go out till later in the day. But tremendous show of Angus cattle. It was the provincial tour for all of Manitoba, so there was about 90 to 100 people at least there for the supper, and there may have been more during the day. There was some businesses had some displays there. They had an auction, they had draws, they had, and of course they had cattle and corn and discussions how to raise better forage crops. So it was quite the day. I told Cam Tibbet, who he and his wife Kristen own Camo Cattle Company, that was kind of interesting for me because this is 2023, and their farm is just north of the former Jackson farm at Eden. And it was 50 years ago this month that I was out there at the Jackson farm, just a few miles from, maybe 3 or 4 miles from Cam's place, working at a corn demonstration project day. And that was one of the first times that field corn was grown extensively in this area. It was 50 years ago. I was with the Department of Agriculture then. I didn't have a whole lot to do with it. I mean, I was just walking around being nice and explaining things to people. But yeah, I can be nice. I can be nice. Anyway, so I told Cam it really brought back memories. The corn is certainly taller than it used to be, heavier yields than it used to be. And of course now, not only is it harvested for silage, it's harvested for the grain. And it's become a huge part of Western Manitoba's economy with the corn. And it goes even back a little further than that because the corn came in from the south more than our first, because it's a little warmer soil there. And my dad, I lived at my home farm, of course, at Holland, Manitoba. And as a kid, my dad started growing corn in 1958. So I've been watching corn grow for a long, long time here. So it's always kind of a thrill when you see that big, tall crop of corn. You know, some of it's 8 feet high now, and it's just tremendous yield. So it was a great day. Really good food. They put on a great supper, beef steak, of course, and there's some pictures in the paper and a bit of a write-up there. We'll probably have more in the future. Probably going to do a little more write-up on the industry and on that particular tour.
Right, yeah, it sounds like it was a great day. And you talked a bit about the height of the corn. You mentioned it can get up to 8 feet. And although we didn't have space for this photo on there, we did have a bit of a demonstration of that. I don't recall the last name off the top of my head, but there was a photo of Damien, who I know around the community, and he's about like 6'9", I believe it was.
Well, he's not quite that tall, but it was way taller than him. Yeah.
Yeah, it was reaching right over his head. I was just like, oh.
Damien Dempsey.
Dempsey, right.
Yeah, lives at Arden. Yeah. He was on the tour as well. So.
Yeah, so I would be like just right lost in there. I definitely nowhere near that height, we'll say that. So, but yeah, it looks like a fantastic day, and putting the page together, I have to say, my stomach was rumbling. I was like, can I, if I keep looking at food, I'm just gonna like combust. Can I sneak out and eat some snacks or something?
It was a great meal.
Yeah, it sure looks like it.
With homemade strawberry desserts after and Rice Krispie cake.
Oh, well.
Or no, puff wheat cake, pardon me.
I hope everybody ate before watching the show. Especially now because we're going to get to some more things we can sink our teeth into. On page 6, we have a little bit of a preview here for the 3rd annual Summer Restaurant Showcase. that the Neepawa Chamber is putting on. And that is from July 31st, so right around the corner here, depending when you're watching the show, until August 14th. So there's 11 select locations who are all chamber members, of course. You have to be a chamber member to participate in this event that you can go to and enter your name in for this draw to win 100 chamber bucks for use at any chamber member, really, but they're hoping that you can use it at the restaurants, just sort of to keep in fitting with the theme. One of the locations is new this year, Tim Hortons. They are hosting a ballot box, but just make sure that you know they are not able to accept chamber bucks at this time. So little addendum there to keep in mind. But it sounds like this event has gotten some good feedback over the years. It started in COVID-19 as sort of a way to just remind people, hey, we can still do like takeout or something. And now it's sort of just, well, this is what Neepawa has to offer, which is great.
Yeah, 11 restaurants, I think almost all the restaurants in town are participating. And, there's, we have some really good restaurants, and I appreciate all that they do. And support your local restaurants. One of the things when we talk about, shop hometown, people, they go to Winnipeg or go to Brandon or go somewhere else to shop, you're likely going to be supporting the restaurants in those towns too, which is okay. But please remember when you go out of town, don't forget your hometown restaurants and hometown stores. And drives me. There's a little bit of an aside, but it drives me crazy. People say, "Well, I can't get this in Neepawa until next week, so I'm going to drive to Brandon, and it might be a $5 item." You know what I mean? Really? I know that it takes me $40 worth of gas to get to Brandon and back. So that $5 item that I need in a hurry just cost me $45 plus 2 hours.
Yep. I mean, and tax.
and plus tax. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, no, we've always, this is a little bit of different aside. When I was growing up in Holland, Manitoba, we used to go to Treeherne occasionally because they had more things, more stores. Okay. You would plan for a week before you made that 8-mile trip. That's how closely you watched your gas dollars and your time, mileage and everything in those days. You'd make a list, and God help you if you forgot something on Mother's list when you came back from whatever. Anyway, times change.
Yeah. And of course as well, the ballot boxes do have all the participating locations on them. And with those locations where they are throughout the town, people passing through are going to see as well. And maybe they'll stop and come downtown or something and have a look at the locations that we have within Neepawa, not just along the highway. Of course, as well, throughout the years, we've gotten more options in the town. We have Prairie Dawn Air now, which is great. That's a nice, very different option that, we don't really have anything like in Neepawa quite like that.
It's unique.
Yeah.
And it's very good. It's very good.
Yeah, and they've actually added some new menu items as well. Last time I was there, I saw they had, I believe they have some sort of variation of pizza that they can do too. Okay. Of course, they have their poutines as well, which I'm kind of curious to try. I'll have to take a look at one of those sometime. And we have Uncle Tom's too, and a bunch of different stuff. So hopefully this continues to gain momentum and we get some more locations participating as well. Like it'd be awesome if we could get Uncle Tom's in there as a participant, Brews Bistro, whatever else we have too. So yeah.
It'll build for next year.
Absolutely. So I'm very curious to see how that will go, and hopefully we can get that feedback very soon. We should make mention of our Farmers Advocate as well, and perhaps we can get a bit of input from you on this too. But that's on page 10 and 11. We have a very special photo on page 11, don't we?
Yes, it's from the Kuchar residence, Leonard Kuchar's home farm in the Glenella, Alonza area, and Alonza actually. And I believe he said that they've been on that farm for over 90 years. And so we have a very nice picture there of a canola crop in the background framing the buildings, and the canola when the picture was taken was between 5 foot 10 inches and 6 feet tall, I was told. And we weren't able to get out there and do it, but Curtis and Tanis Zidane do the cropping now, and Leonard was able to get someone to take a picture there and an aerial view, and it's really beautiful. You don't get much better than that. So we thank Leonard for bringing that to us. We have an article on cattle markets and harvesting annual forage crops, some other information there, and of course some real good ads for our supporters of those pages. So.
Yeah, I'm glad we could get that photo of the Kutcher farm. I know just for us as well, but also on the aspect of I know Mr. Kutcher himself was very excited to get a drone photo of the farm, especially at this particular season with the canola there. You can always see canola is a very popular choice around here, so you can see those seas of gold as you're traveling along on your way down the highway and all that, but getting it from a different angle is always pretty awesome.
I got a little bit of history again for you.
All right, hit me.
Well, I was at the University of Manitoba from 1966 to 1970, and while I was there, the peak of the work was being done in those years, not by me, trust me, but Dr. Balder Stephenson was the professor who basically invented the modern canola plant. He drew it from other varieties. There was other different varieties from Europe and whatever. And for some reason, the crop, it's much changed, oil content and yield and everything else. But the original crop had the unlikely and somewhat unsavory name of rapeseed. Don't ask me why. I have no idea why it was called that. But anyway, they changed it to canola, which stands for Canadian oil, and or Canadian oil crop, whatever. And so every time I see that, I think of my old professor, Dr. Stephenson, who he just poured his whole life into making it happen. I think he would be proud today. Over 50 years later, it's a mainstay of the Western Canadian economy.
Right. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing as well. Is just looking at in general how different crops have progressed throughout the years and changed to but be what they are today. Even so much as other foods like bananas, they have changed a lot to watermelons, etc. And it's all of this. This gets sort of a bad rap here and there, but GMO, genetically modified. It's selective breeding of plants to get or whatever else you might need to do, depending what you're working with here. But in this case, selective breeding of plants to get the desired effect, whether it be drought resistance, etc., and how much better those crops withstand conditions today.
Well, yeah, the yields of canola, it used to be, 20, 30 bushels to the acre. Now, farmers are upset if they don't get 70 or 80 bushels to the acre. It's doubled, tripled what it was 50, 60 years ago. So something's going right somewhere. Somebody's doing something right somewhere in the background there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the agriculture doesn't stop, but it's not all just agriculture, though that is a very important and, it might surprise you. It's a very interesting field in a number of factors. But we have the the Manitoba Agriculture Museum near Austin is kicking off their 67th annual Threshermen's Reunion and Stampede. So long-standing event. I'm sure a lot of people in the area are familiar with it by now. Maybe some people are just getting acquainted with it this year. And that is going on from July 27th to, I believe, the 30th. That's this weekend, again, depending when you're watching it. And they have, of course, as always, a whole host of different events. There probably isn't even enough space to put words on a page just covering all that they do here. But they have, there's music, there's rodeo, there's a whole bunch of different stuff. I haven't been down there myself to see the reunion and stampede. Ken, have you managed to go down there? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was at one of the first ones 67 years ago. I was only a child. But and I haven't been to a lot of them. I love going there, but I have to admit, it's for my old legs. It's a lot of walking, and it's usually very hot. But I've been to many, and when I was helping you out with the cut line there on the little piece under the picture there, it was from past years, but it was setting up the thrashing machines, and that's a timed event. They pull out the thrashing machine, they pull out the tractors, they roll out the big belt, the big drive belt, hook it all up, and then they have to test the belt to make sure that it's lined up perfectly, or otherwise it'll fly off. And I told you, and I think it's mentioned in the cut line here, as a little boy watching the thrashing machines, we were told, don't you go near that belt because it could kill you. And there were, unfortunately, the odd time in Western Canada where a belt would fly off and would actually kill a person.
Yeah.
There was that much power behind it, just flying through the air. But yeah, no, it's quite the show, and if you have time to go down, if you make time, and other times of the year too. I mean, they're not demonstrating nearly as much, but they have some really fantastic exhibitions there. And we were, I don't think we have it on our list, but I also went last weekend to the Fort Lorraine Museum, and there's a bit of a write-up in here on that. That's well worth the trip as well. And there's some neat pictures in the paper from that trip that Christine and I took last weekend.
Yeah, it looked like it was a lot of fun. And you mentioned briefly here, of course, that the museum has a lot of exhibits up near Austin. And the Threshman's Reunion actually coincided really nicely with a new exhibit coming in. They got what they're calling the Gricky Collection. And it's pretty massive. They have like 24 plus machines from, I think, Massey Harris and a couple others. So
yes.
yeah, it sounds really interesting.
Yeah, that's a tremendous collection to get. And there's you know, a lot of, like a huge amount of the old machinery went for scrap and still continues to go for scrap. So it's important that some of these old machines get preserved. Like there was a lot of old machinery went to scrap during the Second World War, because there was a tremendous move to try and, you know, gather up steel for the war effort, and it's still lots, and the scrapping is good. I mean, the old cars, whatever, but it's good that there's been some survivors here, so people can see how things really were. I don't think there's anything much hotter and dustier, quite frankly, than working on a thrashing machine. There's dust and going everywhere, and itchy. Oh, get itchy just thinking about it. I never actually worked on a thrashing machine. Well, I have at a demonstration a couple times, you know, pitched sheaves into a thrashing machine, but I was too young to work on the machines when we were still using them on the farm. So I think we quit using thrashing machines about 1955 or 57, somewhere in there. But I can well remember thrashing days on my farm when I was a kid.
Yeah, lots of memories, I'm sure. And you've told me about some of them before, and I always appreciate the stories. It's very interesting to get that different perspective, especially on something that I don't have experience on. I'm not a farmer. I've always sort of lived within Neepawa in my little home here. I've never really been out on a farmstead, really, at least not actively doing things there, because my grandparents on my mom's side lived out like up at Nesbitt, and they had a little bit of a farm there. There were some cows on there. I think someone else like took care of them, but they had the land and they were letting people use it. So I could see the cows. I was near the cows. I wasn't doing anything with the cows.
You haven't really lived on the farm, Casper, until you're a little kid about this high and you're chased by the rooster.
Oh, yes.
All beak and feathers and claws. And terrifying for a child, anyway.
And that's how you get a new fear, folks. Anyway, I think we have a little bit of time. Did you want to talk a little bit more about Fort Lorraine?
No, well, yeah, it's just that it's a huge exhibit. And so, you know, I would recommend you go to it. But I can talk a little bit about the next one, though, about the hotel. They had to have a height variation to allow for the hotel. We've covered this quite a bit, the Best Western Plus, but it's they're making real progress out there, digging lots of holes and laying lots of gravel, and going to be putting some cement piers in there to build it up, and it's going to be an exciting project. It'll give us something to take pictures of every 2 or 3 weeks for the next year now.
Yeah, so we'll be able to watch that sort of progress. And construction, it's a usually, depending, I guess, what all you have involved, a fairly slow going process, but we'll be able to sort of get that time lapse, and once it's reached the end, I guess it'll seem like no time at all.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to it for sure. It's been a lot of years getting it all together financially and planning and everything, but it's a huge project for Neepawa. That's our third really big project, the hospital, the school that hasn't started yet, and the new hotel. It's a tremendous amount of construction here.
Yeah, we're really growing, and those projects are a sign of it. And it's always good to have those updates. I mean, the current Neepawa Hospital has been in use for quite some time now.
1954.
Yep. So it's been around. It sure has. So getting these new updated facilities is going to be awesome. The new hotel will be great. That'll give another option to people as well, because hotels can book up pretty fast. And I've heard good things about the Best Western Plus. So looking forward to that as well. Mm-hmm.
Good.
We still have some time, I believe, so I'll at the very least mention this really quickly. But the Filipino Canadians of Neepawa and area recently made a very, very nice donation to the Roxy Theatre here in town. And this was funds from the Filipino Heritage Month celebration. So it was the Heritage Committee and PhilCan, as it is called for short. And that was $2,600. So very, very well received, of course, event for the Filipino Heritage Month. So that's great to see. This was portions of the proceeds. The rest is going to some other things, like awards for the pageant participants, of course. But this means a lot for the Roxy Theatre. They're always trying to do something for the community, make updates where they can, so they'll be able to put this to very good use.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting, and to see that, and the Roxy Theatre were well deserving of the work that they do there, of getting some support for that. So yeah, there's a tour. I've got a couple minutes left. A couple other things there. I don't usually promote the ads that much, but Stride Credit Union has an ad in there for the golf tournament, but it's in, give it a little extra plug because it's in September, and it's going to support the air ambulance, STARS Air Ambulance. So that's, every time you hear a helicopter go over Neepawa, you look up and it's a red one. It means somebody's heading for the hospital. So quite often we see them going by, unfortunately, as they answer the call.
Yeah, it is good to have that service at hand, though. Obviously, it's not something we would have had in the past, but having the technology that we do now, helicopters are a thing. So being able to have that sort of service is very valuable. Well, we should wrap this up. We're going to get very tight here on time, but be sure to look through the rest of the paper. There's so much more that we couldn't talk about. We're only so short or so much available for time. So definitely pick up a hard copy if you can, or take a look online if you're not able to. Thank you again for joining me this week. I'm Casper Wehrhahn, your host, and of course Ken Waddell. We do appreciate you calling us or emailing us for ads. We are a free paper and rely on ads, so contact us at 204-476-3401 or ads@neepawabanner.com. Much appreciated once again. Or if you'd like to reach out to us for news tips, if you want to send us in any photos, or if you have some opinions, if you want to send a alert to the editor, a thumbs up, thumbs down, you can send that to news@neepawabanner.com. Thank you again, and have a good week.